Ferrari just made a decision in Maranello that could completely sabotage Lewis Hamilton's final years in Formula One. Why would the most legendary team in F1 history deny Hamilton the upgrades he desperately needs while giving them to his teammate? Today, we uncover the hidden meeting, the internal directive, and how one strategic call left Hamilton stranded in Brazil, with no grip, no pace, and no answers. Because this wasn't just a retirement, it was a message from Ferrari. And it changes everything. In the high-security walls of Maranello, a decision was made that could change the trajectory of Lewis Hamilton's time at Ferrari. After months of technical imbalance, poor tire performance, and rear instability, Ferrari's internal leadership met to decide how to prioritize development for the remainder of the season. The outcome? Charles Leclerc would receive the final major upgrade package. Hamilton would not. No explanation offered. No compromise given. For a 7-time world champion, it was a silence louder than any radio message. This wasn't just a strategic call. It was a message. While one side of the garage prepares for 2026, the other, Hamilton's, is told to extract the maximum with outdated tools. That kind of imbalance doesn't just cost lap time. It fractures trust. And in Formula One, trust is everything. Especially when you're driving for a team that promised equality, and is now quietly shifting resources away from you. The first signs of this shift exploded in Brazil. On Friday, Leclerc's car arrived fitted with updated rear suspension components and an adjusted floor design meant to improve rear-end stability, the exact issue Hamilton had complained about since Bahrain. Hamilton's SF25, meanwhile, remained unchanged. Same floor. Same instability. Same rear-end weakness that made it nearly impossible to attack medium-speed corners. The result? 13th in qualifying. Race pace? Non-existent. On Sunday, it all collapsed. Hamilton made contact on lap 1, but the damage only revealed how vulnerable his car already was. With compromised downforce and underheated tires again, he dropped like a stone. No traction. No defense. No chance. By lap 37, the order came: retire the car. No mechanical failure. Just a cold, calculated shutdown. And inside the paddock, the whispers began. Had Ferrari already made their choice? The following Monday, internal briefings confirmed what many suspected. Development had stopped on Hamilton's spec of the car. Leclerc's side would continue testing new floor geometries and suspension tweaks through Abu Dhabi. Hamilton? Told to focus on gathering data for next year. The same driver who once pulled Mercedes from the brink of defeat, now reduced to a test mule in red. And here's the twist: Hamilton isn't angry. He's focused. Calm. Controlled. Because he's been here before. Undervalued. Doubted. Isolated. And every single time, he came back stronger. But make no mistake, this isn't just about Brazil. This is about what happens when Ferrari, the most famous team in Formula One history, sends a signal that one driver is no longer part of the plan. And that's not a scandal. That's betrayal. When the qualifying session ended in Sao Paulo, the numbers didn't just tell a story, they sounded an alarm. Charles Leclerc? Third on the grid, right behind Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton? 13th, knocked out early. The gap between them was over 0.6 of a second in a sprint weekend. With minimal setup time, that kind of deficit is seismic. And yet, there were no driver errors, no yellow flags, no rain. Just raw, unmatched pace, on only one side of the garage. Telemetry confirmed what Hamilton had been warning about for weeks: his rear tires were not reaching thermal window before the push lap. In Brazil, that meant a loss of traction through Sector 2, where rear grip is critical. Engineers reported a temperature gap of up to 5 degrees Celsius between Hamilton and Leclerc's rears at the start of the lap. That's not just a loss of grip, that's a complete breakdown of balance under load. The SF25 doesn't tolerate tire instability. And in Hamilton's case, it punished him for it. Then came the race. Lap 1, contact with signs. Nothing dramatic. But it was enough to send vibrations through the floor, which was already weakened by an older spec diffuser. Moments later, defending against Colapinto, Hamilton clipped the Alpine and lost a chunk of his front wing. More damage. The floor flexed. Rear downforce collapsed. The team later confirmed a loss of 35 points of aerodynamic load, nearly double the aero loss from his Canadian Marmot incident earlier in the year. From lap 10 onward, the car was virtually undrivable. Oversteer in every corner. Lateral instability on corner entry. No rear confidence under braking. And yet, Hamilton kept pushing, adapting his style, shifting brake bias forward, lifting mid-corner just to keep it on track. A lesser driver would have parked it by lap 15. But Lewis endured until the car gave up before he did. Lap 37, the call came. Box to retire. Not for a failure. Not for a penalty, but because the numbers said it wasn't worth finishing. No points. No progress. No future in that speck of car. The same one he's been carrying all season. And when the engineers plugged into the chassis after shutdown, the diagnosis was brutal. No setup error. No sensor fault. Just a combination of outdated aero parts, rear-end instability, and a driver left without the tools to fight. The real story behind Hamilton's failure in Brazil doesn't start on race day. It starts in the garage, before a single lap is run. Because what's unfolding inside Ferrari right now isn't just a case of slow development, it's a structural division in engineering philosophy. And that division is falling directly on Hamilton. Let's start with tire prep, a science that Hamilton and his team mastered during the Mercedes dynasty. His driving style is aggressive but calculated. He leans on the rear tires to rotate the car and build traction mid-corner. That requires precise rear tire temperature, not just blanket heat, but targeted warm-up cycles, release timing, and the correct sequence of the outlap. In Brazil, Hamilton's rear tires were up to 5 degrees Celsius colder than Leclerc's. Not from failure. From procedure. Ferrari ran 2 different rear tire warm-up sequences that weekend, one for Leclerc, which involved a longer phase under heating, followed by a steady delta outlap. The other, assigned to Hamilton, was shorter, with a more aggressive delta. Officially, both were approved. But only Leclerc's yielded performance. The team didn't switch them. They didn't rebalance across garages. And the result? Hamilton started his push laps without the rear grip he needs to make his rotation work. It's not the first time this has happened. Since the very first races of the season, Hamilton has flagged rear instability in high-deg conditions: Australia, Japan, and now Brazil. And in every technical debrief, the explanation is the same: driver adaptation. But that phrase has become a shield. A way to avoid admitting that Ferrari is still engineering its baseline setup around Leclerc's input, not Hamilton's legacy of precision and late corner commitment. And then, the real bombshell. According to internal documents leaked after Brazil, development on Hamilton's floor and rear suspension stopped before the US Grand Prix. From that point on, the new geometry and damper revisions were tested only on Leclerc's side. Why? Because the team decided they needed continuity heading into 2026. Which means that the driver with 7 world titles, the driver who carried Mercedes for years, is now effectively on an experimental setup that won't evolve. The message could not be clearer: Ferrari's development path is split. One driver is getting the upgrades. The other is expected to adapt to what remains. And Lewis Hamilton? He's driving at the edge of grip and the edge of patience. After the Brazilian Grand Prix, Hamilton returned to Maranello expecting answers. What he got was silence. There was no technical review shared publicly. No team-wide meeting. Just a quiet decision from the upper floors of Ferrari HQ. Development on Leclerc's side would continue. Hamilton's would be paused. Not for technical reasons, but for strategic alignment, a phrase that, inside Ferrari, means one thing: we're choosing our lead driver. Sources close to the team revealed that Ferrari's top engineers were told to prioritize stability on Leclerc's side of the garage for the remainder of the season, a euphemism for concentrating upgrades on the car that's more politically secure. Hamilton's garage, by contrast, was instructed to maintain baseline setups and avoid introducing new variables. In racing terms, he's being frozen out. And then came the moment that confirmed the fracture. Ferrari chairman John Elkann, at a corporate event in Turin, was asked about the team's form. His response? "We have fast cars, we have a strong project. Now we need consistent drivers." No mention of Hamilton. No defense of his effort in Brazil. Just a subtle but direct statement that linked inconsistency to the driver, not the team. That wasn't just a message to the media. That was a message to Hamilton. A driver who has delivered under pressure for over 15 years. A driver who, despite being given a car that doesn't suit him, still defends the team in every press conference. And now, that team is treating him like a placeholder, a stopgap on the way to 2026. Inside Maranello, the divide is growing. Between the engineers who believe in Hamilton's input, and the decision-makers who see him as a legacy asset, not a long-term plan. That tension? It's no longer silent. It's structural. And the biggest scandal isn't that Hamilton was left out in Brazil. It's that Ferrari may have already decided he's not part of the future.